a really boiled down version of what Rick Gawenda went through at Chelan PTS IG in March 2025. So people that aren't aware of this or haven't been keeping track of the email, this is what we kind of went through. So the good faith estimate, just as kind of like some background, it's part of the basically the No Surprise Act of 2022. And what they were finding is that, especially in medical practices, but also in all kinds of different businesses, is people didn't know what they were actually spending until they got the bill. And there was kind of a shock there at the end. And so what they wanted to do is require medical service providers, for people that don't have insurance, to have an estimate of what the cost could possibly be. So this is what this is really pertaining to, is people that are self-insured, uninsured, self-pay, private pay, all those kind of categories. And so it kind of includes this is included not only for physical therapy, but for surgery, for primary care physicians, pediatricians, psychologists, psychiatrists, all those kind of things, anesthesia as well. And then they also require a breakdown of what the coding looks like, of what you charge. So it's kind of it's a nice thing actually on the customer side, for sure. So kind of getting this figured out, kind of getting on top of it is kind of what I titled it, is how do we manage this, obviously, from the clinic side. And so what it is basically is, for those uninsured, like we mentioned, self-pay individuals, they must include details of the itemized services and expected charges. Provider's facility details, meaning this like our MPI numbers, tax ID, etc. Diagnosis codes, and disclaimers about estimate variability and dispute rights. So we have that all in the documents that we'll kind of walk through. We also need to display it online.
Can I ask a question about the itemized services?
Sure.
Because if we're billing somebody for private pay, it's just a private pay rate. So do we need to have the itemized, like the CPT codes on that?
You do, according to the attorneys involved in that.
Even though they won't really technically be billed for them.
Correct. It'll be basically, you'll be offering basically a reduced rate for taking the private pay rate. So having those codes on there of what they would cost if they were actually billed, and we have them on there. I believe most of them are $55 a charge. So they're actually getting assuming there's a 3.8 to 4 unit charging normally, is that they'd be getting a discount by paying cash. But yeah, and for those individuals, there really are no surprises. Here's what it costs. But I asked him kind of point blank on that, and he's like, yes, you still need to have that on there, even though you're not going to exceed any. There's no up charges. It's our 145 rate, and they won't have anything kind of coming in the mail later. Typically, though, we have to provide this estimate, which I think is pretty easy from the time of scheduling, is like within 1 to 3 business days. So we basically tell them that we'll have this for them when they show up. This is as the letter of the law is written, so that they're not surprised when they do get the bill, and then there's not any change of scope or changes of what the pricing may be. So meaning that, like, you couldn't have like a $55 charge when they schedule, and then they come in and like, oh, guess what? Like, the rate's increased to $65 per unit. So that's kind of what the protection is. And then it does.
Can I ask one question about that too? Just like I know that on the form, you have to give an estimate of how many visits they'll have, which usually is based on the evaluation. And so are we really expected to give them an estimate of how many visits, like, before they even come in for their evaluation?
I think what you could say is our average is about 10.2 visits.
Okay, so, base it on the average?
Yeah, I'd base it on the average, and then we can...
Like, say if they were going to go over that amount, would you give them a new GFE so that you're still correct? Because technically, couldn't they, like, dispute it if they had 15 visits and it was over $400 more?
They could probably try, but it's kind of in the language there where it says, like, this may vary. But just as a general rule of thumb, I think you could say about 10.2 visits. Most people are going to probably fall under that. There may be some people a little bit above or below that. And then it does need to be retained for 6 years in the medical record. So as long as it's being scanned and attached into their clinician, then it's there for as long as we use the EMR, and then presumably you'd want to transition that to the next EMR too. Get the next slide here. So basically, what does the front office have to do? And so we have to have a printed copy given to each prospective client or someone on their first visit. So that's the thing inside. It's either in clinician letters or in the Google Suite. Either one will suffice. Then we also need to keep a digital copy of their file. If we're using the clinician letter, then it's kept automatically as an attachment inside their client editor. If you don't, then you need to take the Google Suite piece of paper and then scan it in and attach it to their clinician. So we need to have a digital copy and they need to have a paper copy. We have to have a posting in the clinic, and we have to have an easy to find reference on our website. So those are, it's really not too much. And again, the amount of people that fall under this kind of situation is about, on average for our group, is about 3 to 5% of our clients. So you have two options when we're kind of talking about what to do with how to do it. Again, that's, you can either use it as a letter in clinician, and we'll need to build yours, Kelly, or I can show you how Sarah built ours. It takes a little bit of time. I thought clinician could possibly do it for us. They were not real great at doing that. So I don't know if I can export that file and give it to Sonia and have her transfer it for you. But we have it inside clinician in the larger group. And then it's also, so if you kind of go in, and both of you are.
I mean, even if you like copied and pasted it onto a Word document and sent it to me, then, or if like we could go over it on Wednesday when I see you, because I'm sure I've made letters before and corrected them and stuff, but I would just want to make sure I'm doing it right.
Yeah, you can paste the words from the Google Suite document. We were hoping that we could just paste the whole thing in there, and you can't, and then add, editable fields and have it pull information. But the nice thing about the letter is that it pulls everything except for MPI, which they're working on. So we have a ticket with clinician right now to pull MPI. And then what that looks like is it's basically exactly like the Google Suite letter. It's just inside clinician, and then all those fields on the screen there, these all pull the provider information, the tax ID, all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice. It saves a lot of time, and so that would be encouraged. And you could just print a copy of this for the patient right there.
So, can we go over the time frame? Because I know on the thing that we have to post, it says like, if you schedule 10 days ahead, we'll give you this within 3 days, and then that kind of thing. So it sounds like it's really important that we're doing this when the person schedules.
Yeah, basically what I would probably do is make a task for this individual, and then you could just have this digital copy right here and then just email it to them.
And then do we have to ask their permission to email it to them? Because it kind of seemed like that in the paperwork.
I mean, if they want to have it that day, you would probably need a verbal commitment, because they wouldn't have filled out the paperwork yet. But you're also not transmitting any patient information really at this point. It's really just the provider information.
It just says on the form like consent to email obtained, so we'll just like a verbal.
Yeah. And then we'll get the written confirmation when they fill out their paperwork. If they have filled out Form Doctor ahead of time, then you're fine. But that's going to be kind of a pretty rare case, I think, where they filled out Form Doctor and then we were talking to them already. Good question though. So this is, I think it's much simpler if people use the letters once it's created than to do the Google Suite information, because the Google Suite information, you do need to fill it in. And then again, the other option is the G Suite. So it's in there, it's under, at the top there, search private pay patients, good faith estimates. And each clinic, we created one for each clinic, and then those are all editable by those clinics if they want to tweak those in any form. And then that's what this looks like. So it's basically the same form, but then in a PDF format. It has the necessary links to CMS and and that sort of thing. But in this situation, again, you're going to need to fill in some of the information for each of the fields.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd like to figure this out and get it in my EMR right away, obviously.
Yeah, letters is definitely the way to go. I wanted to have it in both just in case
Uh-huh.
clinician was down or, that sort of situation where people could actually just access it directly through the Google Suite. Then again, the posting of the notice this is kind of got passed around, but basically some form of this, if people want to clarify at the top, that's fine. It just basically has the necessary information that we have on there. So it has like our website, our email, and we have a actual email that goes to me, which is GFE, so I can actually give people more information and attach another person to the email as well. So I can have another front office or one of our clinic owner leads. So that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
simple. Most clinics, I think around the country, are using this just in like an acrylic placard somewhere near or adjacent to the front office. Some people
Yeah, I
have it
would
like
think
on their sign-in
that.
sheet. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think probably the less questions, the better from the standpoint of like, not for those private pay patients, but for people that have traditional commercial insurance. We don't want them going, what do I have to do? What? And then all of a sudden, like our front office gets kind of tripped up. So I think it would
We're not
be
really drawing attention to it. We're just putting it out there because we have to.
right.
Okay.
So I think for like in Kirkland, for example, I talked to Cami about possibly putting it like on the check out desk, not on the check-in desk, because it's just one more thing to kind of confuse people. Like, what is my copay? What is it? I don't understand. Do I need to have what is a
Yeah.
GFE? And then all of a sudden, like you spend time like explaining this for people that they aren't even subject to this. So
So like maybe like if somebody does ask for it that we're not required to give them one, what would we say to them potentially?
a good question. I think I'd probably just say that we're only required to give this to you if you're a self-pay or private pay patient that's paying cash for your visits.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to share what we expect the cost of the visit to be. And we have that even on our website for everyone. And it's on average about 3.92 units and about $145 a visit is what so most visits are coming out to around the group. Plus or minus a couple dollars depending on if it's a reeval or a regular visit. That's kind of what they're coming out to.
Okay. Can we go look at the form really quick, the GFE
Mhm.
form? I just wanted a little more clarification on the requester section.
Mhm.
So, um, it's like those three boxes, right? They're just like spread out. So they can they can be uninsured,
Mhm.
or like most of our patients are insured but have chosen like we're out of network. So we're choosing to not use their insurance.
Mhm. If they're choosing
So
not to
yeah,
submit and you're not submitting for them, so they're not assigned or unassigned, they're just not submitting it, it's just straight, then that would be your the second box there. If they have insurance but they're choosing not to use it, not to bill out a network, and not to submit themselves.
but if they are going to submit, then they choose the one on the right side. Patient intends to submit claims for reimbursement.
Correct. And then you
Okay.
would need to determine on what you want to do, if you want to have it assigned or unassigned. Assigned meaning
Okay.
that the payment would come to you at the clinic. Unassigned would be it goes to them at their home.
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
They would make a determination when they submit it. I think primarily if you're out of network, I think you were assigning benefits to the clinic, correct?
Um, ass assigning benefits to the clinic. I'm sorry,
No, that's right.
I'm just not following.
So there's kind of like there's an unassignment, which means the patient gets a check at their house, and there's assignment where
Oh,
you're billing for them, and it's coming to you, and there's also where
no.
patients submit themselves and it comes to you.
Yeah, no, we're just
Like
not
this.
really billing uninsured or like out of network patients anymore. We were,
Okay.
for Primera for a long time, and then they would most of the time it came to us, but not all the time. And
Right.
that kind of was just dependent on their insurance. Like we couldn't really change that necessarily, but like it didn't happen very often that it would go to their house.
Gotcha.
It
Gotcha.
just seemed like a fluke almost, but
Yeah, it's all about the assignment on whether it goes to their house or not. But you want to make sure that you're collecting up front if it's going to go to their house, because you may never see the money otherwise.
mhm,
Um, the
I have realized that.
yes. So I think and basically, if they're going to submit themselves, they will need the codes that are down below there, and they'll also need a
Mhm.
HICVA printed off for themselves and all those sort of things if they intend to try to get payment later from that.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's kind of like the determination.
so we need to
Ideally,
ask them, like when we're scheduling them, if they intend to.
yes, and
Um,
it is something they can do later, but it's very cumbersome. So talking to clinicians, they were like, it's really great to determine what their choice is going to be and what their assignment will be. Because they said sometimes, oh, they have like a huge out-of-network deductible, and they don't choose to submit it, and then later they have another big health family cost, and they're like, oh, now I do want to submit it. And they said that
mhm.
once it falls out of the 90-day timely filing, they will not get payment for that. So then it's kind of a fool's errand at that point.
Absolutely. I've had a really hard time with um at our clinic, just like because we've had a lot of private pay, probably because we took, United Healthcare for a long time. So one of the things that we had such a problem with was we'd put it on the private pay setting, and then their like ledger wouldn't show all of their CPT codes.
Gotcha.
And so they had a really hard time getting reimbursed. So we encourage people, I mean, we kind of just encourage people not to bother because it's like, what are you going to get reimbursed? Like $30, $40 per visit. It's not very
Hmm.
much anyways,
Right.
um, but that's been tough just navigating that because I think with clinician, like they say you can use the main master fee schedule and just bill that way so that all the codes show up and that it will change it to $135. But in our experience, that doesn't always happen. And then I have to go through and, change their
Manually, like,
bill manually. Yeah, and it's just a pain. And obviously, like with a good faith estimate, you don't want to show up having given them a bill that's very large when you said you wouldn't. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, definitely the best deal for the patient, um, to avoid deductibles and stuff, is to just do the self-pay and not going to submit it, because then they'll get a better price. Because if you're billing four codes and it goes that out of network benefit price, it will go towards that out of network deductible, then they'll probably still be on the hook for a fair amount.
oh, so are you saying that if they're requesting and they're gonna send it to their health plan, that we just estimate based on the units instead of giving them the private pay rate?
You would have to, if they plan on having the codes, then you're going to have to maybe take a deposit, and then
Mm-hmm.
see what they'll still owe money probably on the back end if it's falling into that out of network deductible, which will be quite high, because sometimes they don't decrease the contractual rate quite as much as you've seen. So it's the whole thing is kind of messy, but it's the simplest way is just if they just cash pay and they don't submit it.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of need to know that going in so that you have all the units and things squared away for them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the last thing I want to kind of see here. So we have this on the website now. So
Mm-hmm.
private pay clients. So we met the requirements. He actually looked at that at the conference. I just did it right there. And so that met his Rick Gawenda's threshold. And
What
then
is it under? How does someone find it if I just wanted to tell them?
you just go under the top of the page under patients and then private pay clients.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then we also have it is, I think sent the link out in a couple of the emails, but it's also, I think, believe navigatable through might be mentioned on the letters or something. Oh, I'm sorry, on the posting. It's on there too, I think. But so we satisfied those requirements. So as long as we have it posted in the clinic, we have it posted on the website, and then we hand out that form, we've kind of checked all the boxes.
Okay.
And then this is kind of what we are just talking about, who intends to use it. So that's kind of important to kind of determine. So again, this kind of like, I just kind of made like a quick flow sheet of like the thing. So it'd be like a private pay, kind of determining the type of private pay patient they are. Are they uninsured? Are they going to, they want to self-pay, but they are insured, or patient intends to submit themselves, and then print out that copy, then save a copy in clinician or as an attachment. No surprises, just basically fulfill, no surprises, fulfill the requirement by the state, federal government, and then just making sure we're in compliance with CMS, the Washington State Health Department, and our payer contracts. So that we should have checked all those boxes on those. So anything else that I think you might be the only person left on the call, but
Yep, I'm sure.
I'll save this, and then other people can watch it later, because I'm sure they'll have questions. I think again, this was kind of boiled down. He talked about this for probably when Matt and Joe and Sean, Mark and Laura and I were all there he probably talked about this for an hour plus, hour and a half. And I think it got more confusing the more we talked about it.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's just jumping through a lot of legal hoops, and like we've already pretty much been fulfilling all of these requirements, except not in the way that they want them fulfilled, because we're very, forthcoming about what we charge. So it's kind of frustrating to have to jump through all these hoops, but I understand that it's just the way we have to do it.
It's definitely more stuff to jump through. When I was showing him what we had previously, he's like, no one in the clinic would be going to jail. It's just you would get fined, or you'd be like on a probation for not having it exactly how they want it. So
from CMS.
From CMS.
And that's only if like someone reports us or we get a audit or something?
Correct. You'd have to have like a self-pay, private pay patient audit.
Which is so weird because CMS is like Medicare. So like, why would they do that? But
and maybe the Department of Health would be like the federal Department of Health or the state Department of Health might be interested. It seemed like a lot of T crossing and I dotting, but irregardless, I think with this in place now, for those 3 to 5% of patients, we're totally like up to speed compliance wise.
So I should go back and have my front office, once we get this in clinician, just like send those out to everybody that's private pay right now.
Currently, yeah, probably that'd be, or at least have it attached in their file, their clinician file, and then just let them know, depending on how many you have. I think like Kirkland, we had 4. So it was like, it's a very small amount. So it's very manageable. If this was like, if we were having to do this for every type of patient, it would be quite a laborious process. But
one other question is that it says in the things, it's like 45 to 60 minutes or 55 to whatever. Wouldn't it be easier to just say 45 minutes, or does it matter?
They suggested a range.
Okay. Because we could charge more than the 45-minute like codes. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Because you could end up with 4 codes. You could end up, I guess, if someone, I mean, I don't think our therapists usually do this for private pay, but you could end up with 5 codes. I don't know if it's like return to sport and you're up for an hour and a half somewhere, like up at Totem Lake or that sort of thing. This probably impacts Heidi and Jordan the most in Totem Lake because of the amount of people that have exhausted their benefits and they're just private paying at that point.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Those folks, they're probably not submitting at that point because they've already exhausted benefits, so they're going to be denied anyway. So they're just kind of paying extra to complete their rehab. But it's something nice to have, or I think we can kind of encourage people, like, if you do get denied on your visit allocation, then this is, I think we could probably be more aggressive at marketing people like, oh, you got your insurance is out. Like people just kind of stop, like versus like, we could probably like encourage them like, hey, this is a really good rate. It's all the visit costs are the same. It's still below market. We're in line kind of with personal training and massage for the region. So I think it's something we can kind of spend some time marketing on that.
Well, and we always give people one of those, we call it IBI, the insurance benefit verification thing. And
Mhm.
so would we just like no longer do that for these people? I'm assuming it would take over for
Yeah,
that.
I think it would take over for that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll